This is Jake. Jake always believed that the fact that he had a reserved personality was the fault of the environment he lived in, the people around him, the experiences he had throughout his life, and especially the constant fear of becoming the target of jokes among friends and even within his own family. From a young age, without realizing it, he learned that it was safer to stay quiet, to observe from a distance, not to draw attention, not to expose himself too much, because every time he tried to be himself, he felt that someone was ready to judge him. So one day, Jake had an idea that seemed brilliant. I'm gonna move somewhere where nobody knows me. In his mind, the problem was never him. It was always the environment. It was always the people. It was always the past. He believed that in a new place, with new people, far away from everything that reminded him of who he was, it would be easy to reinvent himself, to stop being introverted, insecure, shy, and finally become someone more confident, more relaxed, and self-assured, more interesting. But the first shock of reality didn't take long to happen. Jake couldn't approach anyone. He couldn't start conversations. He couldn't even ask for directions on the street without feeling his heart race, his hands sweat, and his mind fall into panic. And it was at that moment that he realized something that completely changed the way he saw his own life. The problem was never the environment he lived in. The problem was always him. Maybe you identify with the story in some way. Maybe you can talk to people normally, but completely freeze when it comes to flirting. Maybe you only loosen up after drinking a little. Maybe you even look confident on the outside, but inside you're constantly wondering if you're being judged, watched, or criticized. And what has always held you back, and still holds you back today, is the same fear that paralyzed Jake. The fear of being judged, not by people you know, but by people who don't even know you exist. People who won't remember your name, your face, or your voice the next day. And today, we are going to talk about that. Because it's not by changing cities, jobs, friends, or relationships that you will become the person you have always wanted to be. If you don't change on the inside, nothing changes on the outside. The truth is that most people live trapped in a great illusion. The illusion that when circumstances improve, they will finally improve too. They think, when I change jobs, I'll be more confident. When I make more money, I'll feel better. When I get into a relationship, I'll feel complete. When I move, everything will be solved. But reality is harsh, because in practice, almost no one truly changes just by switching cities, jobs, friends, or routines. Since in the end, you remain the same person with the same fears, the same insecurities, the same doubts, and the same mental patterns, just in a different setting. Many people live trapped in a silent illusion, believing that when external circumstances improve, when life looks more organized, when everything seems to be in place, they will finally feel confident, happy, and complete. They think that when they get a better job, they will feel more secure, that when they make more money, they will value themselves more, that when they enter a relationship, they will feel enough, or that when they move to another place, everything will magically be solved. But what almost no one realizes is that you take yourself wherever you go. You take your fears, your insecurities, your emotional wounds, your limiting beliefs, and your unresolved experiences with you. And as long as none of this is worked through, nothing external will be able to fix what is broken inside. If you are insecure here, you will probably be insecure anywhere. If you avoid conflict today, you will continue avoiding it tomorrow. If you sabotage yourself now, you will keep sabotaging yourself even in seemingly perfect environments, because the problem was never the setting, but the way you see yourself. The real battlefield is not the world outside. It is the silent dialogue that happens inside your mind every day, that inner voice that insists on telling you that you are not good enough, that you will embarrass yourself, that you will be rejected, that it is better to stay quiet, that it is better not to try, that it is safer not to expose yourself. And the most dangerous part is that over time, you begin to accept that voice as if it were absolute truth, as if it were a proven fact, as if it could not be questioned. And little by little, you start building your entire life based on that fear. You begin to choose what you say based on fear. You choose what you post based on fear. You choose who you connect with based on fear. You even choose your dreams based on fear. And without realizing it, you start shrinking, minimizing yourself, and distancing yourself from the person you could become. At some point, you need to stop and honestly ask yourself how many opportunities you have lost because you were afraid of other people's judgment. How many people you never met because you were afraid to open up? How many paths you avoided because of insecurity? And how many better versions of yourself you left behind simply because you didn't believe you were capable? And not because you truly lack potential, but because you never gave yourself permission to genuinely try. The turning point happens when you understand that taking responsibility for your life does not mean blaming yourself, hating yourself, or punishing yourself, but rather recognizing that from now on, you decide to stop being a hostage to your own fears and begin to take control of your own story. It is when you look at yourself and understand that maybe your life is not where you want it to be, but that from this moment on, it becomes your responsibility and no longer the fault of the environment, of other people, or of circumstances. When that happens, you stop waiting for the world to save you. You stop waiting for validation from others. You stop waiting for everything to be perfect before you begin. And you start acting even with fear, even insecure, even uncomfortable, even without guarantees. You start speaking even when your voice is shaking. You start trying even when you are afraid of failing. You start exposing yourself even when you feel embarrassed, because you understand that courage is not the absence of fear, but the conscious decision not to let fear control your life. Jake did not change when he moved. He changed when he decided to stop running from himself, when he began to work on his own mind, to face his insecurities, to expose himself little by little, to accept the discomfort of growth, and to understand that evolving hurts, but staying stuck hurts much more. And you can do exactly the same. Not when everything is perfect. Not when you feel completely ready. Not when fear disappears. Now, because the environment may influence you, it may make the path easier or harder, but it will never be responsible for your transformation, since it always begins from the inside out. As long as you keep blaming the world, you will keep handing your power over to others. You will keep waiting for permission to live, and you will keep postponing your own evolution. But the day you accept that the problem is you, not as a form of self-attack, but as a way of taking responsibility, that will be exactly the day you begin to become the solution.